I just bought another £1 million plus revenue business. Why did I buy it? How did I buy it? Where did it come from? What's all the tips and tricks that I've got in buying businesses? Well, good news for you, Captain. It's all coming up in this video. So here I am in super sunny Wales. Why? Well, because we've just bought this company called Be My Bear, which was one of our major competitors for our teddy bear business. I started this process around 3 or 4 years ago, flirting with the idea of buying this business, meeting the previous owner, and recently we got the deal over the line. They've got some great contracts. They do stuff different to us, but also very similarly to us. So there's loads of vertical integration, loads of cost savings, and all of that is coming up. One of the reasons that I bought Be My Bear is it came with containers full of stock. It wasn't just containers, it was also this, a giant warehouse full of stock, 6,000 square foot of stock. In fact, we had a good few £100,000 worth of stock, which is really good because the second you buy the business, you can start trading and converting that cash. So we'll talk about vertical integration, but first, let's talk about the business itself. What is it? It's a teddy bear making business. So not just normal teddy bears. These teddy bears, as you can see, what Be My Bear sell, are flat. There's no stuffing in them. That's because you sell the stuffing separately and the kids make it, and they do it at holiday parks and activity camps. Very similar to what I do at Teddytastic, which is the company that bought Be My Bear. I started that around 10 years ago. These guys have been going for nearly a quarter of a century. Started by a great entrepreneur called Pippa, and that's who I bought the business off of. More on that later. See, Teddytastic has been going for 10 years. These guys have been going for 25 years. So we would compete on various tenders. We would see each other at trade shows. I got to know them. I built a relationship and a rapport with them. Very important if you want to try and buy your competitors out. Why be enemies or frenemies? Why not become the same family? And that's what we did. Teddytastic bought Be My Bear, bringing our skill sets together, bringing this amazing management team that Be My Bear have got, leveraging that into Teddytastic. Teddytastic's buying power leveraged into Be My Bear. It's a symbiotical relationship. It's fantastic, and I can't wait to tell you more. As I flutter through my thoughts here, I'm thinking about vertical integration. I'm thinking about buying companies and why that's so powerful for you guys as entrepreneurs and business owners. If you want to grow your business, you've got that option of the 10% growth each year, doing some Google papers, PPC, doing some trade shows to try and bring more leads into your business. But if you can look over on the horizon and see a ready-made thing, oven ready, actually out the oven, selling the hot cakes, everything's going like gangbusters, why not try and buy it? So I kept on looking at Be My Bear in awe. I'm thinking, cool. They do scan clinics, for example. You know, when people are pregnant, they go to the scan clinics and they have the heartbeat for the baby and they can put it inside a teddy bear. We were really not doing very well in that marketplace, and Be My Bear are very good in that marketplace. I thought we could take that synergy. They were supplying one of the biggest holiday parks in the country that we weren't supplying. I thought, oh, they've got that all set up. They've got that contract. They've got predictable cash flow. I saw all this synergy and I thought, we're just got to buy them. So how do you do that? Well, you can write a letter to someone, reach out and say, hey, we're in the same industry. Let's be friends. Let's meet up. Let's see what opportunities are that we can do together. Now, Pippa, who owned this business, agreed to meet up. We actually met just down the road from Buckingham Palace as COVID finished. That was like 4 years ago. We had a cup of tea together. We got to know each other. I think she was a bit wary of me, first of all, because she said, oh, James has bought this, James has done this, and he had a much bigger company. But we got on very well and we kept in touch. And then I just dropped her a text message every 3 or 4 months saying, hey, how are you? And then I just said, look, if you ever do want to sell, please think of us. Because I knew Pippa was coming up to retirement age. And she went, do you know what, James? Now is the opportune moment. So that was 3 or 4 years after that cup of tea meeting. And then we had that meeting and we structured a deal that allowed us to go in and buy that company. She got the money that she wanted and we could arrange a good cash flow way without affecting the business. And I'll tell you more about that later. And that's what we did. We bought it into our family. And the team are so fantastic here that looking after Be My Bear. And I just see that together, the marriage rights. See, Teddytastic good £4-5 million business. They're a £1.2 million business, but combining us, I actually think there's going to be around another 2 million of extra revenue because their customers can now do all of Teddytastic's arts and crafts range, which they haven't got the capabilities of doing right now. So putting it all together, you don't just get their revenue, their profits plus our revenue plus our profits. Putting it all together, you've got massive economies of scale savings on all your importing costs, warehousing costs, operating. They've got some capacity in customer service that can really help Teddytastic because we're really short on that. Oh, it's just amazing. Plus, what do I like when I buy a business? Well, I like establishment. This business has been going nearly a quarter of a century. I like brands. People know it. It's in the zeitgeist of the activities market because of this brilliant brand that Pippa built. So we can take all of that and invest all of that goodness, those moats that Be My Bear has got around its business that we really don't have, and the different customers that we can serve now. It's just fantastic. It literally is winner, winner, chicken dinner. Right gang, now I'm here at the Blue Boar Hotel. Now this is a hotel that we own, and in fact I've made a video on how I bought this business, why I bought the hotel, etc, etc. So if you're loving this video, you're probably going to like that one as well. And good news, Captain, there's a whole series of videos on how I bought businesses, why I bought them, the structure, how much I've paid, so go and check them out on the YouTube channel if this is the sort of thing that floats your boat. I think right now there's probably 5 questions you're asking yourself, and I'm going to try and demystify them here on the whiteboard. Question number 1, because I think you're nosy, is what did I pay for the business? Question number 2 is what's the legal structure? Did you do an SPA? Did you do an asset purchase? I'll explain all those acronyms in a minute. How did I structure the deal? I think you probably want to know that as well. Did I use banks, private investors, vendor finance, seller finance? I don't know. I'm going to tell you all of that. How do I protect myself? Because a lot of people think, James, you've bought a lot of businesses, you've done a lot of deals. How do you protect yourself if something goes wrong? And then lastly, a SWOT analysis of this business. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Look, we go through life doing SWOTs all the time. Even if we're buying a car, we're thinking, cool, is this car going to be reliable? Are we going to get let down by the dealer, by the seller? Well, actually, I'm doing all of this in business deals. I'm looking at the SWOT, opportunities and threats as well. So the first thing is, what did I pay for the business? This is the question that I get most asked from anyone that watches my content. This is something I've learned through my M&A career. That stands for mergers and acquisitions for the uninitiated. And this really was an M&A deal. We was merging it and acquiring it into our existing ecosystem. And they're the best deals, by the way, gang. They are the best deals. When we come up to the SWOT later, that will definitely come up. One of the things I've learned, I've bought lots of businesses, more businesses than I feel like most people have had hot dinners. And this is what I've learned. This is a Warren Buffett phrase, and I want you to take it with you. I want you to swipe and deploy it. Pay a fair price for a good business. Not what the younger James Sinclair did, was getting a good price, getting a bargain for a fair business. This was a well-oiled machine. The engine was in good condition. It was purring along. It was efficient. It was making money. Everything was good. All you need to do with those types of businesses, just put 10% je ne sais quoi on top and everything goes really well. So what did I pay for it? Well, look, I think because the lady that I bought it off, I think it's fair that I don't divulge the actual price. But it was a fair price for her. She got the number that she wanted. I didn't negotiate on the number. I'll even tell you it was somewhere between 500,000 and 1.5 million pounds. It was a fair price for a good business. Let's talk about the size of the business. It's around a 1.2 million pound revenue business and makes a good few £100,000 profit each and every single year. It holds a lot of stock, so it's got a good balance sheet. So when I'm buying companies, I'm looking for profitability, I'm looking for contracts, I'm looking at the balance sheet, what's the stock value, what's the business actually worth. And all of those things meant that I was prepared to pay a fair price for a good business. I don't want to get into this habit of what I used to do when I didn't have the resources that I have now of buying things for £1 or a bargain and then spending a lot of time repairing them. Hey, I bought Camp Beaumont earlier this year. That was a £10 million revenue holiday camp business that was a brilliant, great business, but it wasn't, the wheels had sort of fallen off. It was sort of the parent company went into administration. I've had to put a lot of effort, energy and enthusiasm into sorting that business out. Now, Be My Bear, we paid a good price for it, a fair price, should I say, for this good business. but I haven't actually had to do anything day to day. We bought this sort of 4 or 5 months ago, and the thing has just been running by its excellent management team. We haven't had to find cash to prop it up. It's all going very well, and that's why I was prepared to pay a fair price for it. So when you're looking at M&A, when you're looking at deals to buy, do think about that, because if you're paying nothing for it, get ready for a time vampire in most cases. Let's now talk about legal structure. Now, what I mean by legal structure is, did we do an asset sale? So you've got an asset sale where you just buy the assets of the business, maybe the brand, the stock, choopy the staff over. I've done quite a lot of those. Or do we do an SPA, which is a share purchase agreement where you actually buy the shares of the company, you end up owning the company, you take on all the liabilities of the company, you take on all the good news of the company as well. Most of the time I've done asset sales because you start afresh and you don't have to worry about any historic stuff. With an SPA, if they've got £1 million worth of debt or a big insurance claim in the background or big dilapidations on a lease or anything like that, you inherit all of that when you become the director and shareholder owner. This was a good company. I had every faith that Pippa had run a very good organisation, so I was prepared to do a share purchase agreement. One of the things that, if you are going to do a share purchase agreement, you do all your due diligence, you are satisfied there's no skeletons in the cupboard, you're satisfied that you're not going to get any bad debts and big contracts being lost. Once you're satisfied with all the obvious, one of the things that I always check, and this is something that I've learned through bitter pain really, is about dilapidations or dilaps, as surveyors call them. Be My Bear, as you saw earlier in the video, has got that big warehouse. One of the most important things that I needed to make sure was that if we leave that warehouse, which is our intention to do, to bring all their operations to the Teddytastic warehouse in Essex, to save money, to have all the efficiencies, to have all the stock in one place, you get it. To leave warehouses, you have to pay this thing called dilapidations. Now, before I've had £65,000 bills to leave a warehouse where you have to return the warehouse to how it used to be 10 years ago. Maybe you've painted the walls white, but they were magnolia before. The landlord will say, no, we want them back to magnolia. Maybe you've put air conditioning in or LED lighting and they had old school heating and fluorescent lighting before. They can demand that you put all that back or give you a big bill if you don't. I've had people tell me they've had £1 million plus dilapidation bills. I personally, the highest one I've had is £450,000. So these can be horrific things for business owners. So I always put a caveat in any of my share purchase agreements, buying the shares of a business, that there's a dilapidations clause in there, that if I get a big dilapidations bill, the seller, the person I bought the business from, has to cover that. Because that could be way more than any tax bill. It could be way more than being knocked on any contract. Be very wary of dilapidations. Now, if you're in a lease, by the way, and you're in a business, when you come out of a lease, be very wary of these dilapidations bills. That's why, in many cases, it can be better to buy a building so you never have to worry about dilaps. The next thing is how I structure the purchase. So I told you that we bought the shares, so we paid for the shares. I didn't use a bank in this situation. We used cash and then some vendor finance where we're paying Pippa over a period of time. And you always want some of that, even if you use a bank, so that if there is, some unpaid bills or there is something that you've not been completely told, that can come off the vendor finance. I don't see that happening with this situation. I think Pippa's run a very well-oiled machine. So then vendor payments just get paid out and everyone goes their separate ways over a number of time. I'm not going to go through the absolute idiosyncrasies of this deal, but I've done vendor payments anywhere between 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and 5 years. I'd never put interest on those vendor payments because that just hamstrings the business. You want to try and get that off because they get some massive tax advantages. When entrepreneurs and business owners, even today in 2025, with the tax changes that the current government have put on, it's very tax efficient for business owners to sell a business. If you've got £1 million worth of cash in the business and you want to draw yourself a dividend, you're going to pay around half of that in tax. Whereas if you sell a business, at the moment it's 14 and 24%. Make sure you check accountancy advice. In fact, I think it's just changed again very recently. So at the time of making this video, the tax changes are changing all the time. So must see your accountant. But in essence, capital gains tax at the time of recording, or asset business disposal relief, is much cheaper than income tax or dividend tax if you were drawing cash out from trading. So the next one is, how do I protect myself? I've done lots of M&A, and only once it's gone wrong, and even then I've managed to sort that out. Took a couple of years to sort it out, a lot of legal fees, but most of the time things go right. Most people are good people and do the right thing. But how do I protect myself? Well, the vendor finance is a great mechanism to make sure that both parties are telling you everything, because if they're not telling you everything, they're going to lose their vendor finance. You want to make sure you have a really good contract in place with a lawyer, but you don't want to spend £500,000 on legals to protect yourself for 50 quid. I mean, momentum. Because time kills deals. Time kills deals. Momentum is the most important thing. I was involved in what could have been the biggest deal of my life this year, and someone was the other side, just spent so long on due diligence, so long on going over and over and stuff, and then the deal fell apart. So you don't want to do so much due diligence that the deal falls apart, but you do want a strong contract, a really good lawyer. Big shout out to the lawyers that helped me on this was EMW in Milton Keynes. Holly, you was amazing, and Tracy, who's the head partner there. They were brilliant. They worked till midnight to get this over the line. So a big shout out to EMW. They haven't paid me to say this, by the way. I'm paying them in their the chunky legal fees, but I do very much recommend them, and I'm sure if you say my name, they will look after you. Anyway, so vendor finance is a good way of protecting yourself, because you can have all the contracts in the world, but here's the thing: if the person hasn't got the money on the other side to fight you or pay you back or whatever, then the paper isn't worth what it's written on, So you want to make sure that you have actual cash held back for a number of times to make sure that everything you've been told is true. And lastly, let's now talk about the SWOT of this business. So what's the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? Let's start with the strengths. So, when we're buying businesses, we're looking for the moats. What's the moats here? Establishment, established brand. We had loads of stock. We had contracts in place. I mean, there's 3-year contracts with customers. That's very powerful. That's predictable cash flow. What's the weaknesses? Well, Trump tariffs are weaknesses at the moment, because, if they import a lot of stuff from America, and so that's got a lot more expensive. And for Americans to import stuff, it's got a lot more expensive. So that is a weakness at the moment, or it's even a threat, if you like. The weaknesses, there is a little bit of customer concentration. So they've got, a big contract. And that's one of the big things that I always worry about in our businesses, and any business or any entrepreneur. If you've got customer concentration where one customer is driving a lot of revenue, so about 25% of their revenue comes from one customer, and I need to get that to 10%. My rule is no more than 10% of your revenue should come from any one source, because if you lose that big customer, it can sometimes mean curtains for the business, or at least be very painful. So if you have got one big customer in your business, your job is to now go out there and find another big customer to dilute their dominance on your business. The opportunities, though, are absolutely outstanding for us. The vertical integration is the biggest opportunity. We sell loads of arts and crafts to all of our Make a Bear teddy bear customers. They don't do any of that. The opportunity is cost savings by merging the warehouse and giving their range to our range, and our range to their range to their set of customers. When we look at what the customers like, they like price, range, and convenience. Even if they only buy 5 of your top lines, if you've got a massive range, people just in their back of mind think that you're the market leader. How many items that Amazon sell? Millions, but you probably only buy 200 regular items from them over a year. Because they've got the whole range of nearly everything, A to Z, if you like, you go there because they've got range. So we have now, because of this purchase, become the largest range of Make a Bear products in Europe. So having the largest range in Europe gives us massive dominance and power, and we can now offer our customers better prices because we've got better buying power. So we're going to price that, pass some of that goodness on to our customers. So customers at Be My Bear and Teddytastic are going to get better prices, better range, And you know what? They're going to get better convenience because they're going to have best customer service in the business. They're going to have next day deliveries. They're going to have massive stock range. So when I can get price, range and convenience into anything, and that's one of the biggest opportunities this business has presented to us. What's the big threats? Well, the threats are a big threat in this business. I suppose kids don't like teddy bears anymore. Maybe we lose one of the contracts. That's a big threat to the business. Or maybe there's a bigger trade war that means we can't get products into this country. So I'm aware of all those things. But there's a brief SWOT that I'm doing in our business. But the vertical integration, giving our customers more price, range and convenience, having the biggest range in the country. When you can buy a company and at the point of signing, you're now the largest range in the country. That is just a thing of beauty, in my opinion. Hope you've liked this video. Hopefully I've given you some good tips and tricks to take on to your entrepreneurial journey. If you'd like to come and learn more from me, why not come to one of my seminars? I run live events to help entrepreneurs and business owners really grow their business. All the details on my website, jamessinclair.net. I've got 2 coming up. Business Masterclass, which goes through this and everything in business marketing, growing companies, getting the best from your team. And then I do another day just on buying businesses. So if you want to find out more, go to my website, jamessinclair.net, and I'll see you there when you're older.